Football, the beautiful game, loved by billions across the planet. It's more than just a sport, it's a universal language that connects people from every corner of the world. From the crowded streets of Rio de Janeiro to the quiet fields of Africa, football is played, watched, and celebrated with passion. But behind the roar of the crowd and the glory of the goals, there are some unbelievable facts about football that even the biggest fans may not know. Today, we dive deep into the hidden side of this incredible sport, stories, secrets, and facts that will truly blow your mind. Let's start from the beginning. The first fact that will surprise you is that football, as we know it today, wasn't born overnight. It evolved from several ancient games played thousands of years ago. The earliest version of football dates back more than 2,000 years to ancient China, where a game called Cuju was played. Players used a leather ball filled with feathers and hair, and the goal was to kick it through a small net made of silk. Imagine that, a sport from the 2nd century BC that would one day become the world's favorite game. Now here's something even more unbelievable. The first ever recorded international football match wasn't between two European giants like England and France, it was between Scotland and England in 1872. The game ended 0-0, and around 4,000 spectators watched the match at Hamilton Crescent in Glasgow. Even though no goals were scored, that game started what would become one of the oldest rivalries in sports history. Speaking of goals, here's a mind-blowing fact: the fastest goal ever scored in professional football happened in just 2.4 seconds. It was scored by Nawaf Al-Abed in a Saudi Arabian match in 2009. Imagine the referee's whistle blowing, and before anyone could even blink, the ball was already in the net. That's faster than it takes to read this sentence. But football is not only about speed and goals, it's also about emotions, surprises, and legends. Did you know that the World Cup trophy has been stolen, not once, but twice? The first time was in 1966, just before the World Cup in England. The trophy disappeared from a public exhibition in London. It was later found by a dog named Pickles, who became a national hero after discovering the trophy wrapped in newspaper under a bush. The second time, however, wasn't so lucky. In 1983, the original Jules Rimet trophy was stolen in Brazil and never recovered. It's believed to have been melted down and sold as gold. Now, let's talk about some record-breaking players. Everyone knows Pelé as one of the greatest players in history, but did you know he scored his first professional goal at just 15 years old? By the time he turned 17, he had already won a World Cup. And speaking of records, the player with the most official goals in history is not Messi or Ronaldo, it's Joseph Picken, who scored over 800 goals between the 1930s and 1950s. His speed and scoring ability were so unreal that some historians believe he could run 100 meters in 10.8 seconds, nearly Olympic level for that time. And here's another fact that will make you rethink what you know about football. The first ever World Cup, held in 1930 in Uruguay, had only 13 teams. There were no qualifiers, and teams had to travel by ship to South America, a journey that took weeks. Some European nations even refused to participate because they didn't want their players to spend months away from home. Despite that, Uruguay hosted and won the tournament, becoming the first ever World Cup champion. Now, let's shift to one of the most emotional football stories ever told, the Christmas truce of 1914. During World War I, soldiers from opposing sides stopped fighting for one night on Christmas Eve. They came out of their trenches, exchanged gifts, and played a friendly football match in the middle of the battlefield. The exact score is unknown, but the message was powerful: even in war, football united enemies for a few precious hours of peace. It remains one of the most touching and unbelievable moments in both sports and human history. Let's talk money, because football isn't just passion, it's also big business. The most expensive football transfer ever recorded was Neymar's move from Barcelona to Paris Saint-Germain in 2017 for an unbelievable €222 million. That's more than the GDP of some small countries. But here's the twist: when football began, players weren't even paid at all. It took years for professionalism to be accepted. In fact, in the early 1800s, players could be banned for taking money to play football. Now let's explore something really fascinating: the size and shape of football pitches. You might think all football fields are the same, but that's not true. FIFA's rules allow fields to vary between 100 to 110 meters in length and 64 to 75 meters in width. That means teams like Barcelona or Manchester City can customize the size of their pitch to match their playing style: wider for possession football, smaller for defensive tactics. Even at the professional level, strategy begins with the size of the field. Ever wondered why a football match lasts 90 minutes? There's actually no magical reason. It was simply decided by the first official matches played in England, where that duration seemed reasonable. It became tradition, and soon the 90-minute game was accepted worldwide. But not all matches have lasted that long. The longest football match ever recorded lasted 3 hours and 23 minutes in 1981 between two English amateur teams who kept playing due to repeated draws and stoppages. Football is also full of strange coincidences. One of the most famous is about two players, Pelé and Neymar, both scoring their 100th career goals on the same date, February 20th, exactly 50 years apart. Another coincidence. Both Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo have scored more than 700 goals and won 5 Ballon d'Ors at one point in their careers, a rivalry so close it feels written by destiny. Now, let's talk about the weirdest football matches ever played. In 1945, a match between two teams in Moscow was played in near blizzard conditions, where players could hardly see the ball. The game continued despite snow covering the pitch. By the end, players were frozen and exhausted, but they refused to stop. And in 2002, Madagascar saw one of the strangest scorelines ever, as Adama beat Soleimani 149-0. But before you think it's a world record of skill, it wasn't. The losing team intentionally scored own goals in protest of a referee's decision. Here's another jaw-dropping fact. During the 1998 World Cup, the entire nation of Jamaica stopped working when their team played. Schools closed, offices were empty, and streets were silent except for the sound of football commentary echoing through the island. It was Jamaica's first ever appearance at a World Cup, a moment of national pride that showed how football could unite an entire nation. Now let's move to technology. Did you know that goal line technology wasn't introduced until 2012, even though arguments about ghost goals had been happening for decades? Before that, many games were decided by controversial calls, goals that never crossed the line but were still counted. One of the most famous was England's third goal in the 1966 World Cup final, which may or may not have crossed the line. Technology finally solved that problem, but only after 46 years. Here's a curious one. Footballs aren't actually completely round. They are made from 32 panels stitched together, which gives them a slightly imperfect shape. That's why the ball sometimes curves unpredictably during a free kick. Players like Beckham, Pirlo, and Messi mastered this effect, known as the Magnus effect, to bend the ball beautifully around defenders. Football has also gone beyond Earth. In 2018, a football was sent to the International Space Station to celebrate the World Cup. Astronauts floated it in zero gravity, making it the first football ever to fly in space. From ancient fields to outer space, football truly has no limits. And here's a record that may never be broken. The player who has represented the most clubs in history is Sebastião Abreu. He played for 32 professional teams in 11 countries. From Uruguay to Greece to Brazil, his career was a global journey that only football could make possible. Let's talk about passion and fans. The biggest football stadium in the world isn't in Europe or South America. It's the Rungrado 1st of May Stadium in North Korea, which can hold around 114,000 people. But the most attended match ever took place in 1950, when 199,854 spectators watched Brazil face Uruguay in the World Cup final at the Maracanã Stadium. Imagine the energy of nearly 200,000 people. That's like two entire cities cheering at once. Even referees have records. The most red cards ever shown in a single football match was 36, yes, 36. It happened in Argentina in 2011, when players, substitutes, and even coaches from both teams were sent off after a massive brawl. Talk about chaos. And finally, perhaps the most unbelievable fact of all, football's power to unite the world. It has stopped wars, inspired revolutions, and given hope to millions. In Africa, a single football match was once credited with helping bring peace between warring factions. In Europe, it's a source of cultural pride. In South America, it's almost a religion. And in every child's heart, from the dusty streets to shining stadiums, football represents dreams of victory, teamwork, and greatness. So the next time you watch a match, remember that what you're seeing isn't just a game. It's thousands of years of history, countless records, and billions of emotions. Football isn't just the most popular sport in the world, it's the most human. From the first kick in ancient China to the modern World Cup final watched by billions, the beautiful game continues to evolve, inspire, and surprise us all. And who knows, maybe the next unbelievable football fact will come from the player kicking a ball in your neighborhood right now.